slick shades on, leather coat tight, moving through shadows under neon light. Whisper clues in the velvet air. Every step's a rhythm, every glance a dare. Cold case files in a gold-plated ride. Smoke rings rise as the truth unties. Diamonds and dust, we follow the trail. Silk tie justice never fair. Midnight smooths in a hip-hop haze, solving the game in a smooth R&B maze. No crown too slick, no clue too small. We catch 'em all with a swipe protocol. Eyes like scanners, touch like silk. Breathe the streets like a glass of milk. Fingerprints hung in a baseline low. Every suspect's got a place to go. Bench floors with his bartender knows. Secrets spill where the jasmine blow. Money talks but the cups don't lie. Another case filed under the sky. Midnight.
Battles got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feet, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
Really important to me. Um, Muted. I shouldn't be muted. Oh my God, let me refresh because I should not be muted. Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me. Let me know. Oh, my goodness. What a major L. I'm over here talking, giving my little intro, and I am literally so jumping back into what I was saying. Now, me and know my history on some of these spaces on YouTube, and you know why this subject in particular is important to me. Okay, you know why this one important to me. Yeah, major L, but we figured it out. Now, if you do know me and you have history with me in this space, then you know why this subject is important to me and sensitive. But I do think that this is a major topic that gets thrown around, thrown in people's faces, dragged up and down the street, up and down the highway. That is just kind of what people do with this aspect of people's life. Now, I'm just going to make a disclaimer. I had no intentions of publicizing my life, my relationship, my attachment to said dusty individual. Let's be real here. I had no intentions of telling the world. Okay. I was forced into publicizing that situation. And so here we are, fast forward almost 2 years. Yeah. Okay. And that Dusty's still running around, using it as a talking point, running around, using it as a topic, running around, making up stories because he don't got nobody or nothing going on. It is what it is. Now, but another reason why I wanted to talk about this subject was because I've been seeing a theme, right? I've been seeing a lot of people, a lot of women specifically, talking about divorce and leaving relationships and just how kind of like they have this belief about marriage. And then when they got into the situation, right? And those of you who are in a healthy marriage, you know what I'm going to need you guys to take off tonight, just for tonight is the shoe. Because if it does not fit, then let it fly, right? If it doesn't apply to you, then allow us to have the discussion. Because I'm not like other people. I understand that there are healthy relationships and situations out there. But let's be real, okay? There's a lot of manipulation going on. A lot of people are meeting each other online. A lot of situations are being based off of fantasy, like just delusional standards and maybe not even non-existent standards, right? So I do think that it's important for us to keep those things in mind. And I don't want the people who are in healthy marriages today to come in here and make it all about them. Okay, just let us understand that you might be in a healthy marriage, but I think the divorce rates are what, 50-50. So that means just as many happy people is just as many, there's just as many unhappy and unsuccessfully married people, right? So I do think it's important to have this conversation. And the reason why I titled the video the way I did, because I know this is a subject. Mind you, again, no intentions of ever publicizing my situation yet. When it became public, it became this thing. And, a couple days ago, the sisterhood of some of these chats got into, we got into a spat because, there was differences of opinions and things. And I noticed where the level of where things went with those people from those chats and the level of where things have gone when I disagree with people in a space where people fostered respect for each other. And I just could see the very big difference. And so that was eye-opening to me as well. And I decided that I was not going to contribute to any gender war type things. And the reason why I say that, hear me out, is not because my channel is centered around any type of, okay, we need to get you out of here. I don't know why the hell you would come in the stream and write that in the chat. I mean, there's so many people here in the chat, but you would just say something so shameless. So anyways, what's my point of view? I just don't want to contribute to the gender war. And the reason why I say I don't want to contribute is because I have done trolling in the past. I have made jokes. Even if I have coded my jokes in understanding and facts and been able to kind of get to some part of the subject with people, I think the trolling overshadows um, the reality, which is that um, there really is this dynamic where like some people are in really healthy, happy relationships, and then there's this other group of people who are kind of just going through it, right? There's men who are giving bad advice, women who are, uh, toxic and also giving bad advice. I mean, it's just kind of a market of people who really don't know how to select partners or are moving based off of naivety and trauma. And so that's kind of what you kind of see out there in the dating market. So when we do have these conversations, sometimes I think married, happily married, or healthily married people, they're like, well, there can be the, and it's like, okay, we get it. But the reality is that the other half, right, the 50% that is getting divorced and remarried and divorced and remarried, or divorced and never married again, right? There is some dynamics that are at play with that group of people. And I just don't think that we should ignore it. So that being said, to shift away from me and my personal reasons for doing this stream, we're going to talk about a stream that I really enjoyed. And I enjoyed it because of the vulnerability and the fact that this is somebody, a YouTuber that I idolize, like in terms of like their craft. Like I like how they do content. I like how they carry themselves online. Like I just like a lot of things about how they do YouTube. And so hearing them be vulnerable and being able to kind of eloquently and gracefully maneuver this life-changing and kind of devastating kind of outcome in a situation, in a relationship, in a marriage, in a lifetime or whatever, helped me feel like, yeah, this is a conversation we definitely have to have, and I'm not going to shy away from it. One thing I do want to state as well too is my channel generally has been covering crime and things. And I'm still gonna do that, but for the nighttime hours and the late nights and things like that, when I'm doing nighttime shows, I am gonna start doing topics that I'm interested in. Sometimes they'll be crime related, sometimes they won't. Now, I am going to do a crime related version of this video where we talk about all the dangerous dynamics that women are subjected to when they get into marriages and relationships. And, just kind of all of that and some of the different crazy stories I've been seeing. I've been seeing a lot of, I don't know if this is like an increase or we're just seeing the stories more, but a lot of pregnant women being unalived, a lot of infants, children. I mean, it's just wicked. So I just really wanted to come from a personal perspective, or like let's say more like a relationship conversation perspective, and then I'm gonna do a crime version similar to this as well. So let's get into the first video that I wanted to cover today. Like I said, this is another YouTuber. Some of you may know her. Um, okay, let me just. Oh, all these like apps are changing. So I was supposed to. Now I'm sharing myself. Hold on, guys. Here I am struggling on the new restream. Okay, I'm trying to share that. No, that's not else. Screen one. Nope. Screen two. Nope, that's not what I'm trying to skip. Oh boy. Guys, give me a second. How is it possible for them to have made this even more complicated? That's what I want to know. This is ridiculous. I'm actually going to have a heart attack. Okay. Screen sharing is not allowed. Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. I see what I have to do, guys. Give me a second. I'm over here like literally struggling, and I'm just, what's going on? All right, so I guess because I have two screens on, I want to do it this way. Okay. All right. That was just too much. Oh, not y'all. Okay, so I'm gonna hide this one. All right. Bear with me, guys. You guys know I have not been streaming. That's why I'm over here struggling. All right, let's get into E-Level's video. If you guys can do me a favor and hit the like button on your way in, I would appreciate it. All right. I got married at 30, had a baby. So how did I? And let me just say this: whatever it is that keeps you grounded in these really toxic situations. Oh my God, no sound. What is happening today? Oh my goodness, this is craziness. All right, let me go here. Why is Restream trying to be StreamYard? I don't understand it. All right, I'm gonna try again. I'm already getting pissed off. I don't know why Restream is trying to be StreamYard. Like, just be yourself. Now I'm over here struggling. I don't even know how to use this shit. Let's try this again. All right. Glow up and grow through. All right. Before I waste too much time, can you guys hear the video? Anybody, if you're out there, if you're here, if you're with me, please let me know. Can you hear the video? I don't want to proceed if there's no sound. I'm over here struggling. I really don't want to keep going if there's no sound. You guys let me know. Can you hear it? Let me test this. If you're here. Was the reality. Okay. All right. I don't know what's going on, guys. No, there's no sound. You guys can hear me, but you can't hear the video. So I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know what's going on. I'm annoyed. Let me see. That this person has actually become toxic and dangerous for me. I have to separate myself from the person who I vowed that I would be committed to for life. For the person who just went through this wanted pregnancy with me, right? It wasn't an accident. He wanted a baby.
a breaking process. I had to now break those bonds, those vows, those spiritual attachments, those physical attachments, right? I had to now.
So you guys can you guys hear it? Can you guys hear it? I'm trying to see why when I pause, did it sound like super echoey? Because I think the issue might be that whatever new style of streaming, um, you have to keep your video on. Did it sound echoey? Yeah, it did, right? My Lanta. So this one it lets me. Hmm. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me try this one. Let me try this one. All right, let's try this. Okay. We might just have to deal with the echo until I can figure out what is going on with my audio settings. I don't know what is going on with my audio settings. I have to figure out why why it would be doing what it's doing right now. I don't know. Let me see if I can let me see if I can just play with this sound on because I'm reviewing this video today. However way I need to, it is what it is. That's what I'm doing. So I don't know what kind of force is trying to stop me from this. What warlock is trying to cut my video? But the devil is a liar. I banish you. Hopefully, you guys can tolerate the echo for me, okay?
Let's let that breathe for a second. And so, as heavy as that was for me, as dark as those times were, I can promise you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And that light for me was definitely Jesus Christ. Okay? I serve a very big God. Hey, a very big God. A very big God. And so, how?
So, kind of what I was saying when this first part of the video came on, right, is a lot of women can probably relate to what she said, right? Whatever age that most educated women are getting married these days, right? 30. You got married, you had a child, whatever the case was, and now the relationship is over, right? A lot of women could relate to that. You know, I found her getting on here and talking about this, especially especially because she also got on here and announced and discussed her marriage. I found this to be something that was really powerful, right? I think a lot of YouTubers, when their messy drama or whatever comes out or doesn't come out, right? They usually don't have as much grace, right? They're more like, trying to conceal things or twist the story. And I really do just think like her coming out here and mentioning like, hey, this wasn't what I thought it was, and yeah, I was fooled. I think that was something powerful. I think a lot of women have already been doing that, but I do think the way she shared her story was really, a lot of women can probably hear her story and relate to it. Now, what I will say is, whatever you need to hold on to get yourself out of that crappy situation, do it. For her, it was religion. For her, it was God. For some people, it might be their children, their families, their careers, whatever dreams they had on. Hold on to it, because a lot more women than we think will end up in these situations, will end up in a marriage with a child, with somebody that you thought you knew, that you thought was good for you, that you thought was wanting the same things that you wanted, and then you found out that that wasn't true at all. Okay, I think when more stories are posited like that versus like, oh, this man hurt me, or this is a terrible man, then we can actually get something out of what's being said. So, anyways, let's continue. Again, excuse the echo.
Did I glow up and grow through all of those dark days? First things first, I had to come to grips, and it's a thick, bitter pill to swallow. But I had to come with grips with the reality, okay, that this person has actually become toxic and dangerous for me. I have to separate myself from the person who I vowed that I would be committed to for life. For the person who just went through this wanted pregnancy with me, right? It wasn't an accident. We wanted a baby, right? God was so gracious enough to bless us with that. And so getting a divorce it's a breaking process. I have to now break those bonds, those vows, those spiritual attachments.
And I just want to say to her, shout out to you for being able to do it. Because for some people, it really is that strong and powerful. Like, they really felt like when they got with somebody that they bonded with somebody, right? They got on the path to, their destiny, to their legacy, blah, 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 whatever fantasy story that they told themselves. A lot of times that's what makes it so difficult for people to detach from unhealthy situations. So I think like her being able to recognize and understand, hey, this was something that I really, really wanted to do. I planned this pregnancy. I planned this marriage. I had every intentions of spending my life with this person, and it didn't work out. Right? That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. And I do think sometimes we fantasize and tell ourselves that a situation is not as bad as it is, based off of these beliefs, or even based off of a belief of like, oh, you should never leave your husband, right? Catholics, they truly believe that relationships don't end. Whoever you marry is who is going to come and collect their wife or their spouse on the other side. So imagine those beliefs. I really do think that they keep people in a chokehold. Lana Love says, I feel bad to hear her story. She seems like such a sweet, hardworking young lady. Yeah, she definitely does. And, I think even when she announced her relationship, everyone was happy for her. We were wishing everything. And I think sometimes we take our creators and we assume that their lives are perfect. And I'm not saying that I did, but I definitely think that, but maybe people idolize her situation, or whatever the case may be. Some people thought, oh, well, she got married, she got a perfect life, and that's it. But one thing that she's going to talk about is how there was a steep decline in her being online and doing videos, right? A lot of us noticed it, but did we judge her for it or assume that bad was going on? No. I think a lot of us assumed like life was happening. She was having children, she was married, she was building something, and she was going to bounce out a couple of years down the line, rich wife, relaxing, doing content, but also living a soft life. We all assume that. And so I think that's what we do with anybody that we like, is assume that the best of their life is going to come. And she got really raw and open and honest with us that that wasn't the case. And how this relates back to my situation, again, I'll go back to, is that people will look at my situation, right? Me, the person I married, the circumstances, whatever beliefs and understandings that they think they had about what happened in my situation. They will take all of that and be like, you should have known better. You should have chose better. You married an acre. you married the dusty. Oh, you called men niggers, and then you married a nigger. And then they're really just turning the conversation sour because now we're not talking about the fact that this can happen to anyone, man or woman, right? But I would say as a woman, that's the only experience I can speak on. And I do find that a lot of us go through the situation where we are heavily, heavily, heavily love bombed. Okay. We come into these situations thinking what we see on TV or what we're socialized to believe as girls, which is that, we should want romance. We should want a relationship. We should want to be partnered, right? And we don't really think about.
Have you ever met someone who seemed to understand you almost?
Excuse me. We don't really think about some of the dangers that does come with not falling head over heels or in love or having this romantic story about how your relationship started. We ignore a lot of important things when we romanticize relationships. And I know that sounds bad. Why should we romanticize relationships? Because like anything else, a relationship should only be built on a foundation, a solid one, where consistency and evidence of respect and adoration, like those minimal things, have been shown for a duration of time before you even become committed or even give so much of yourself, like have a child or get married, right? One of the other things she's going to talk about was the speed, right? Very quickly things happen. And some people might say, oh, well, she says it happened within a year. That's not quickly. Sometimes that is quickly, right? Sometimes it's very quickly because some people take time for you to get to know them and for you to see their mask, right? And see that they've been pretending to be a person and they're really somebody else. It takes time. Some people are better at masking their true self. And so I do think like there is no set amount of time, but I do think that for her and in this situation, things moved swiftly, and the grand gestures and the whole love bombing of it all definitely is kind of what got her swept up into the situation very quickly, married with a child. Now, I was lucky enough not to get into that. Very lucky. Right? There's people who were as briefly married as I was, and they were not lucky. I was lucky, right? Unfortunately for her, she's talking about how bonded she felt to someone. She had a child with them. She got married. They merged lives to some degree, right? Even though, even parts of that you guys are going to understand was kind of tricky as well. So let's get back into her video. Ooh, I'm over here.
Attachment, those physical attachments, right? I have to now break those things, accept it, grieve it, and move on with life. It's really not easy, but again, I'm going to keep reiterating. I'm going to keep reiterating for the women out there that you will get through this. I know you don't know how. I know you can't fathom getting through it. Actually, I know you think you probably will never get through this. That you will always feel broken. That you will always feel alone. That you will always feel like this was your fault and that you made a mistake and that you're not worthy. But I promise you,
and kind of going into the manosphere and the red pill spaces, they want women to believe that when a relationship goes wrong and they chose a partner who was no good or who ended up being, just a bad mate, that it was a culmination of our choices, right? And not a culture of how men are taught to behave. We're going to get into that culture of how men are socialized to behave in relationships on a different day, right? But we never really talk about it like that. And there is this whole aspect of it, and especially as a Black woman, right, in these Black spaces that be online. Oh, you marry a dusty, you should have chose better. You should have knew. You should have knew that nigger. You should have knew his whole digital footprint, everything he's ever said about a Black woman. You should have chose better. How dare you? How dare you come on here and expect people to understand that things went really, really, really wrong, right? You should have known better. That's what spaces like that, that's the conversation that spaces like that foster. It's not even about the culpability that each person had in it. It's literally about blame, right? When a relationship breaks down, I think that two things happened, right? There was no communication, or there was a improper or bad communication, and there was divestment, meaning one or two parties decided that they were no longer invested in the relationship. Right, that's what happens when when a relationship breaks down and people break up and relationships end. It's not about who did what. Somebody initiates leaving, sure, or feeling detached from the relationship, but it doesn't change that detachment that a person is trying to feel contributes to the breakdown. And there's no blame because it can happen on either side. But the conversations online about relationships and why they end and who's at fault, they focus on blame and blaming a person. And I do think women, because we tend to have more empathy, sorry, I'm going to put it that way, um, we tend to internalize the messages of men more, right? So when men get online and say, well, women, they play dumb, they choose the bad guys over the good guys, and they don't make smart choices in relationships, they choose based off of superficial things, right? We internalize those things, and we do blame ourselves when relationships don't go well or they don't go in our favor. And so what she's saying here is really important, right? If you went through this, if you're going through this, just remember a lot of people go through this type of situation. All you have to do is get yourself back up. Let's continue.
Satan lying to you. Okay, and he's using this vulnerable moment, this moment when you're down, to try to lie to you, but you're not. I guarantee you're not. Okay, and so these were the ways that I pretty much bounced back after having a baby, filing for divorce, all within a span of about 4 months. So step one was acceptance, accepting that this situation is actually toxic. Knowing that I did everything that I possibly could do to save the marriage actually helped me as well. Because again, like I said, I take my vows seriously, I take marriage seriously, right? And so I knew that I had to do everything that I possibly could, but ultimately I had to remove my hands off of the situation and just allow it to be. Coming to grips with, wow, this is not the person that I married. That was a big disappointment. Learning who this person actually was a big disappointment and very scary, in fact, actually, to be honest. But aside from that, everything is a mental thing. It's like, okay, what I thought my reality was and what I thought my life was, it's not that. That was the hardest part for me. That might not be the hard part for you. For me, it was the hardest part because it's like, I did everything the right way. I did everything the right way, and I still ended up in this situation, right? So there's that. There's accepting the reality of the situation. Then there's the fear of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say. How do I explain this to my family, to my friends, to my community online? In the eyes of many people, I had an amazing marriage, and it did start off that way. Like, it was truly everything, it was truly beautiful, and so then it was, okay, I have to explain this to everyone. And with now thinking that I have to explain this to everyone, now comes the feeling of, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Why?
And it really shouldn't be embarrassing, right? It shouldn't be embarrassing for women to say, I took a chance and it went in the bad direction. Or, this relationship didn't end out how I wanted it to be. But I do think, especially Black women, we have this whole pressure where people believe that there's a high failure rate for our relationships, no matter who it's with, right? They believe, well, Black women just can't stay married. Right? Maybe this isn't true for everyone, but it's definitely a stereotype that kind of floats out there that I do think maybe for some Black women, especially Black women that are married or try to stay in functional relationships, that looms and it lingers, and it kind of is like a black cloud over their heads where they feel like, am I going to be that statistic of a Black woman who marries a dusty or who ends up divorced or cheated on or in a relationship where I'm doing everything? right? I do think that that fear makes it difficult for either us to want to take chances or for us to be vulnerable when we as women need to be vulnerable. I think more black women who get divorced need to speak about it. There's too many that stay in these relationships for too long. There's too many. Let's continue though.
Do I have to share it? Why am I in this position where I now have to explain this? Oh my gosh, what are people going to say? Oh my gosh, my haters, I got a couple of haters. My haters are gonna be celebrating like, God, how could you let my enemies triumph over me? Like, why me? I don't deserve this, bro. Like I dead ass don't. Right? I really don't, and so that was another thing that I had to sit with, not even like more so feeling shame that people would feel shamed about me, if that makes sense. Like I didn't feel ashamed about filing for the divorce. I didn't feel ashamed about making the best decision to be mentally healthy and safe and all those things. But I felt shameful that other people would now look at me a certain way and judge me a certain way. And so now I'm feeling the residuals of shame. Mind you, this never happened. Mind you, these are all scenarios that never happen. I'm predicting what people are going to say about me, what type of images they're going to have on me, as well as in Nigerian culture. Like you really just don't really share bad news publicly. Like that's a big kind of like superstition cultural thing. Like you don't want to just share bad news. You keep your bad news to yourself for the most part. You keep your bad news like that, within your really tight knit family. And so that's another thing where we don't just be out here like, yeah, girl, I'm filing for divorce. It's like, my close aunts, my grandma.
And this is, I can relate to this. I don't know if it's just an African thing, but I can certainly relate to that. Like, you're not supposed to share bad news. You're certainly not supposed to give people online ammunition. Like, let's say you don't have a bunch of haters online. Why would you even want anybody to be knowing about your own personal hardships outside of like certain things? Like you wouldn't want people to know those things anyways. Not because you have anything to hide, but because that's your private life. And outside of the situation that I was in prior, there was no me personal life online. Like I didn't share anything. I still don't myself. Right? People can get online and try to share things that they saw while I was on this channel, but I don't share my life. That's not the thing that I do. I think that there's something about being online and having the anonymity of like people not knowing your personal life. And I think that's why like I'm trying to move away from even those spaces and those channels where it becomes a thing of like, oh yeah, let's talk about our relationships and let's throw each other's finances and their personal circumstances in each other's life, or like whatever. Oh, I'm married or I have kids or whatever. Like those type of conversations are not for me. I want to talk about growth, mental health, crime, um, black femicide, those types of things. Moving away from the personal, because I do think that once YouTube becomes about your personal life, it's really hard to, separate the two. So I think that's also why I think Iloho did like a really good job of dealing with the situation. Because I think when she shared her marriage online, she wasn't intending to have to come back 4 years later and say like, I'm no longer married. The situation was really bad. Like I don't think that was what she was expecting was going to happen. I don't think that's what she thought her outcome was going to be. So I definitely think she thought, oh, I'm going to be that person, that YouTuber who posts her relationship, little bleeps of it, and that's it. And that's it, and that's all. But obviously, if that relationship goes sour and you're dealing with that, it's going to turn into, you don't post for a while like she didn't. And you actually have to make a disclaimer because your life has significantly changed since that relationship. I don't feel like she had to explain any of this, but I do think there's some braveness in it that is powerful for other women who need to hear stories like this. So, anyways, let's continue. And also, hello to everyone who's coming in. I appreciate you guys coming into the show. This is kind of like an impromptu show idea that I got today. I'm going to be doing more of that for my late night shows. And then I'm going to be integrating back the crime a little bit more regularly. So thank you those who are coming in or checking out the stream. I did have some technical difficulties, so I didn't get to say formally hi to everyone, but thank you for popping in. Mia, Lana Love, we got Bodhi in the chat, the front porch. We had Ekaz, Connie Wolf. I saw Investing Out the Blue in the chat, Daniel Berry Sports. Um, and then Flight. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the show. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you guys. This is an important topic. You know, I do think there's so much of the like gender banging that the important conversations about things like this don't happen. And they do need to happen. Regardless of people's personal feelings about it, they do need to continue to happen. Let's continue though.
Here, they were just like, don't tell anybody. Nigerians do not trust nobody. Like, don't even take it personal. The way I got over that was, honestly and truly, if people really knew what I went through, they would actually be so proud of me. You feel me? Like, they wouldn't be like, oh, well, you got a divorce, and what did you do? But all that. They would be like, yo, I'm actually proud of you for leaving. There are women that can't leave. There are women that are afraid to leave. There are women that don't trust that if they leave, they will have a life, a substantial life. Like, I chose me, bro, and a lot of people can't do that. And I don't judge those women. Those women may have children. Those women may not, be financially able to sustain it. There are women who don't have family support. They don't have a team of people that can I come stay with you and can you come help me with the baby? All they have is that man. All they have is that abusive husband. All they have is that husband that emotionally neglects them, verbally abuses them. So it was actually trying to turn that now.
And this is what women, let's say this is what women have to remember, right? As you get into these spaces and you start commingling with bandits, this is what you have to remember. Codependency is a major, major issue that women struggle with because of our conditioning, because of the way society is set up, where some women don't have anybody. All that crap and dragging that people try to do of me, it wasn't true. I had people, I had opportunities, plenty to leave. I did. But that's not true for everybody. And I do think when women fix their lips and start dragging other women for the choices that they make based off of these stupid gender banging conversations online, that you're taking away the womanhood from yourself. Right? You're not even giving grace to other women. You're not giving credence to other women, and the fact that, yeah, some women are in situations that they have no way out of. Some of us might think, oh, there's resources, there's opportunities, but there's some women who've never even heard those resources or opportunities. They've always been fed the belief that your life is secondary to a man's, that you are an accessory to patriarchy, right? That's what a lot of women have been taught in their life. They've been bred to believe that, right? And I think as women, when we take away that understanding, that we're kind of bringing ourselves down that low empathy, that kind of low vibrational energy as women, where we don't even give understanding to other women. Right? Some women cannot leave. Like, just like I can look at myself and be like, oh, I was one of those women who things went bad and I left, right? There's a lot of women who don't have those opportunities, that they might see all the red flags, but the way things are set up, they can't just leave. They don't just have the ability to just leave. And if we as women are going to be online having conversations, we cannot turn ourselves into low empathy, low vibrating and low empathy males that be online having these conversations. Because even a man who displays empathy isn't going to get online and drag women for the choices that they make in relationship partners. Anybody can make a bad choice. Anybody can choose the wrong person. It can happen to many of us. And I'm going to get into a video about love bombing by Dr. Tracy Marks that kind of explains it a little bit. How a person as intellectual as myself, or Eloho, or the next educated beautiful black woman or a woman in general, right? We could all fall susceptible. We can all be susceptible to these um, relationship manipulation tactics that happen, that lead to these situations, that lead to vulnerability. Never give somebody the power to feed you, right? Because then what can they do? They can starve you. That's something that has not been ingrained enough in the minds of women, right? Too much of our conversations have been a response to the vitriol that we hear online. Enough of them have not been um, additions to our understanding and our knowledge. It's just been response. Forget what these dusties are saying. Anybody, any type of woman can end up in a toxic situation, can end up with a partner that's manipulative, that's abusive. It's not a matter of being smart enough, right? It's a matter of the circumstances and the cards being laid out properly. Does that mean that we women are completely helpless? No. It just means it's very possible for us to find ourselves in these situations. There's still a lot of programming in society. Even if you as a woman feel like you're not programmed anymore, that um, you're not stuck in your belief systems based on religion or anything, that you're able to see everything, the bigger picture, right? Society hasn't caught up to that. Men have not caught up to male culture has not caught up to that. That's why in 2026 they rolled back Roe v. Wade. Now you can't even freely go get an abortion, right? Even though men don't men don't have a difference in opinion in abortion. Like they still want babies gone. That they don't want babies. That they don't want a baby. Like they still want women to get abortions if they don't want a child with them. That hasn't changed, right? But that cultural understanding, that influence of patriarchy, that's what's moving back Roe v. Wade. It's not a bunch of men out here really not wanting women to get abortions. Men have always wanted women to get abortions. Always, just as frequently as they've started putting their peens in women, they've also wanted women to abort babies that they don't want. So, anyways, we got way off topic. Hey, Sherry Berry, what's going on? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Let's continue with the video. Next, I am going to play a video on love bombing, but I did want to hear a little bit more from Eloho's story before we did that.
Around and saying, well, I'm goddamn proud of myself. Okay, I am proud of myself. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of myself. And when the time is right, I am going to share what's happening, my life update, what's happening. And so this is what I'm doing now. And so I just feel very proud because even speaking with my therapist, I was like, oh, how am I going to, bring this to my channel? I don't feel, it just was so much shame, embarrassment, and sadness surrounding this topic. And even though divorce is very common, you just never think it's going to happen to you. You think like, I'm marrying my best friend. This is an amazing person. And let me tell you, not to you marry, let's be very clear. That person is not the person that you divorce. And most women will divorce you emotionally before they divorce you on the paper. So that person that you're divorcing emotionally is not the person that you're marrying. I came to grips with, I'm gonna eventually share this on my channel, and even if I make it even if I take it down after a couple of months, I feel like it's still just a step of me showing myself and freeing myself of the judgment of strangers, judgment of haters, and shame and guilt. It's a freeing that's happening, that's occurring. So you're witnessing a history. So another thing that got me through was understanding some people will actually never change. There was a series of traumatic events that took place. There was a lot of verbal abuse, which I believe was a result of some financial strains, which was also a result of addiction, right? And so that's a perfect storm. And again, I have to do what is safe for me and for my child. A lot of women don't make it out of those situations. A lot of women don't make it out of abuse.
And this is true, right? It's so true. A lot of women do not. So just like I can be here sitting telling you guys I left that raggedy situation, and Eloho can be sitting there, face beat to the gods, edges laid, gorgeous, telling you guys There's a lot of women who don't ever get to tell anybody that they didn't made it out of that relationship, right? That's kind of one of the biggest motivations behind me doing true crime content, is to see how many women truly lose their lives because they choose love. That's essentially what it comes down to, right? They say, I love this man, I have a family with him, I have a child, and just like that, it becomes their blind spot, unfortunately, right? It becomes that unfortunate thing that contributes to their demise. And so these conversations where we're not shaming women, but we're telling them like, hey, I thought I was good too. Turns out I didn't find a unicorn, right? Those conversations are just as important as getting on here and telling you guys that, a pregnant woman was slain, or toddlers were unalived by their own father, right? Four of them being girls and never made it to 10 years old, deceased by a gun. These are conversations that we need to have, and they cannot be conversations that are gender banging. They seriously have to be about safety and strength in relationships and resilience and having community, and not going into a relationship without creating some sort of safety net for yourself. And men can be mad about that all you want, but the statistics say we have to. They say we have to. If you guys can still hear me and see me, let me know. I'm seeing like flashing. It's kind of been doing that the whole stream though. Let me know if you can still hear me and see me. If you can't, let me know as well. All right, let's continue.
I looked up one day and was like, I actually don't deserve this, bro. Like, I'm actually way better than this. Like, you actually lucked up with me. Any nigga that ever fumbled me is a fool. The Bible says you're a fool. So got me out. Therapy got me out. I was in therapy for 2 years after, like I said, it was a series of.
And listen, I can relate. We can all relate. Right? You can all relate to that feeling like, dang, why am I dealing with this stupidity? And for each person, I think that time comes different. Some people, boom, they can snap right out of it. Okay, they can look into it and be like, okay, why am I dealing with this? Right? Luckily. And for some people, it never comes. That conversation, it never comes. They're just simply in survival mode, or the violence overtakes. It's unfortunate. Let's continue.
Traumatic events, and then the main traumatic event that sent me to the whole house, like, I gotta go. This man gonna kill me. Okay, I was in therapy for 2 years, and I love when my therapist kind of like shows me full circle moments. Like, wow, Ilaho, when we first started talking, these were the thoughts you had. These were the things you said. I remember telling her things like, I feel like I'm drowning. Like, when I first started therapy, I said, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm drowning. I have a huge responsibility of a newborn baby. I'm a new mom. You feel me? And I'm drowning. I'm dying. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful thing. And God is so gracious, that now I can sit and talk to my therapist and say, girl, I feel like I own a yacht. I'm on a yacht. I'm in the water, but I'm on a yacht now. I'm on a big old grand yacht with Dubai. I love me some Dubai. with the city skyline of Dubai behind me. Me and my girls just dancing, partying, hookah, having a good time. Like, life is a ball. So it's just nice when we have those full circle moments and we circle back. And so again, I just felt like, let me make this video to just share on some of the ways that I got through that feeling of drowning and dying to life is beautiful, life is a ball, right? And so again, therapy was very helpful in that. Therapy was incredibly essential in that. My village was incredibly essential in that. My daughter had colic. Like, girl, it just felt like too much. I made me cry. I had a lot of anxiety. I had it's like every negative thing. Not every, let me not say that, because people really be going through some things with their babies. But all of the things, the anxiety, being just afraid, I was just so afraid of everything. I went from being a free-spirited person to being afraid of everything. What was I afraid of? Oh my God, is something going to happen to my baby? Is something going to happen to me? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Is this milk good? On top of that, no sleep. Think about not being able to sleep, y'all. I ain't really slept since. I ain't really slept in 2 years.
And here's an aspect to her situation that makes it even more difficult, is that she is postpartum, right? She had a child. And so you kind of add this element to it where now people have to decide, or a person has to decide how, like, what choices am I going to make? Who am I prioritizing? Right? Versus in a relationship between you and another person, that's all it is. It's just you and that person. And are you going to stay and deal with their foolishness, or are you going to choose yourself and move on? Hey, Dina, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. And so I think when you add a child, there becomes this like strong arm and this like loud voice to try and make whatever you're dealing with livable. And I think part of the issue, like, yeah, you mentioned here, like having a baby, that's a major thing, like you're not only is your body and your hormones and things like forever changed, but now you add on to that like this life-changing type of thing, realizing that you're in a toxic situation that, from what it sounds like, is she was dealing with somebody who became dangerous, right? Substance abuse and emotional abuse eventually are going to turn into physical. So all of that compounded with postpartum stress and like how your body changes after having a baby, that made her situation significantly more difficult to leave. That's why that time thing, like now you see it. It took her 3 or 4 years to leave. Why? Because she had a lot more invested in the situation than someone like myself who could just walk away from a destiny. Right? I can just walk away. There ain't nothing holding me there. Once I hit the road, I ain't never coming back, right? Versus you have a child with somebody, at the end of the day, they're always going to have access to you to some degree. Even if it's not directly with you, it will be through a child, for example, for Eloho. So, I mean, this is a difficult aspect that I can't relate to, but I can only imagine how it makes her situation that much more volatile and dangerous. Because now you have to worry, like, if I leave, are me and my child in danger? Right? Because some of these men we see, they're not hesitating to take out children. All right, let's continue.
She just now started giving me a good 6-hour window, but at that time it was every 45 minutes to an hour. I'm up. If I'm not up feeding her, taking care of her, whatever the case may be, I'm up pumping because now my breasts are swollen and I got to get all of this milk out. I needed my family. Big shout out to my mother, big shout out to my father, big shout out to my sisters. I needed my family to help me with the baby. Okay. And so for months, the focus was just on baby. I mean, my hair looked a mess. I still didn't look like myself. Wasn't doing makeup. Sometimes I wasn't able to really take a shower because I got my baby. She crying all day. And if I pull her down or if somebody takes her and they're like, oh, I'll take her while you shower. I'm like, okay. I go shower and I just hear her screaming and I'm thinking something bad is happening to her. I got to jump out the shower. So it was times I was just like, let me just, just do 1, 2, 1, because I need to be here for my baby. Who really want this? Like, you really so I get so like, who would put themselves in this predicament? And I know.
And that's one thing that some of these, spaces online, these dusty spaces that get to dragging women. When it comes down to the sacrifices that a woman has to make when she has a child, for a child, why would anybody choose to just do that stupidly? Right? Like what? Like it's never just somebody just choosing. There's those rare instances that some, bonehead believes that their only purpose in life is to have a baby, but that's rare, right? Most people are not intending to have a child and things get difficult and hard, and they now suddenly ignore the person that they had a children with, or things go sour. That isn't the plan. The plan isn't for a person to raise an infant by themselves, right? That's why the blaming and the shaming makes zero sense, and it has no purpose in these conversations about relationships. It has none. Because the outcome for women when they leave these situations, and when the marriages don't work, or when the family breaks up, it almost always compounds to much work, or if it was left for this reason, the same amount of work as if they were by themselves. And I'm assuming that for her, she was probably going to be taking care of the baby just as much when she was on her own, paying her own bills with her own freedom, than it would have been to be with this man. I'm sure these type of men will become abusive and volatile. They never help carry the burden in the home. They never. They're almost always adding to the burden in the home, not taking away. Right? Let's continue.
Like, sometimes we could just be so hard on single mothers and single, but it's like nobody other than women who like literally choose to be single mothers. I'm not talking about them, and they are the minority, not the majority, but other than the women who specifically choose to go the single mother route, and they have their own struggles as well. But I'm talking about women who have married men, married their partners, made commitment with their partners to have children. No woman wants to be a single mother struggling through a shit alone. Nobody. Nobody's signing up for that. Before you start judging women, oh, you a single mom, Okay, why? Why am I a single mother, okay? Because nobody will purposefully put themselves in these predicaments. Then you got postpartum depression. You got things telling you all types of stuff. You got all types of emotions. You're feeling all types of ways. No, it's small team, no. I realized I started to come up out of the water because I was drowning. I realized I started to come up out of the water, at least here, when I started to take care of myself on just basic things. I still wasn't giving glam. I started to shower regularly. I started to put on lotion. I'm telling you, I would not put on lotion. And y'all know how much I love myself. I love my skin. I love glam and all of that, and getting dolled up and all that. But I started to shower more. I started to put on lotion. The day I sprayed perfume, I was like, oh my God, I have not sprayed perfume in.
And one thing I will say that I can relate to, even though I can't relate to the part about the child or anything like that, I will say is that when you get into these toxic situations, you do detach kind of from yourself and from your own will to some degree, right? This toxic situation has you putting other people and things above yourself, and that's the desire. The desire is not for you to be able to balance the relationship. That's not that. They want you a lot of times, and she hasn't really gotten into the dynamics too much yet, but they want you to be unbalanced, unable to care for yourself and keep up for yourself and be the best version of yourself. That's the only way you're going to need them in their small, puny, patriarchal mind. After she clears her throat. What's up, Johnny Fly Jones? But yeah, this is a big part of it. And I do think, that I can relate to that, right? Once you start seeing through all the fog and the foolishness, right? You suddenly have this desire, this want to pour into yourself because you've been spilling and spilling and spilling, especially when you have a baby and you're literally milking them with your own breast. You're literally draining life out of you. Not to say it's a bad thing to do for a baby, but your life is being drained. Your life's being drained out of you. And if the situation's toxic, it's even that much worse because you don't have anybody helping you prioritize yourself or make time to shower regularly. I mean, she's a stay-at-home mom. He could have very well made time to let her go and shower regularly and wash her hair and do something for herself for a day. But there obviously wasn't that balance in the situation. You know, she talked about going to file for divorce. I promise you, before a woman files for divorce, she's gonna try her dangest hard to keep the situation alive, to find a healthy way to maneuver. She's gonna try. You gotta believe that. Let's continue.
Months. When you have a new baby, you don't want to put fragrances on because it can irritate their skin. And I'm skin to skin with my baby all day. So, it's like everything is about her. It's not about me. It's not about me and wanting perfume. I just want her to be safe. I want her to be healthy. I want to raise her right. So when I sprayed her, I took Ozempic for about 3 months. After giving birth, I lost most of the baby weight. After breastfeeding for almost a year, I gained it all back because when you're breastfeeding, you have to eat a lot. You're constantly eating and drinking water because you're.
Lana Love said she probably cried and begged. Yeah, and I think she is gonna go into some of the dynamics of her situation, which hopefully I don't get too tired to go over. But yeah, she I bet you she did, right? A lot of the times there's a lot of eating that you do where you just kind of take and take and take, and you're like, okay, this is part of a relationship. There's some compromise. You're gonna have to deal with things that you aren't very fond of. You're gonna have to be flexible because you have a family now. Let's say, right? You have a child. You got married. You merged your life, and all of those things now require you to make some compromises. Maybe some that you wouldn't make if you were single, right? You might not make those same decisions if you weren't tethered to this man already with a child. And so I do, like, people don't realize before a woman gets to the divorce court, before she starts to that, before she leaves her husband, um, oh boy, no sound again. Let me see what's going on with my sound tonight. Before she starts to that, before she leaves her husband. It might be you, Dita. I just kind of listened to the playbook, says it's on, but YouTube has been glitching all night, so it could be that as well. But on the playback, I'm hearing my sound. So if anyone else can't hear me, just please let me know. That way, I can at least refresh. Dita's always here. Um, I think it's literally YouTube tonight. All right, let's continue.
Your body needs to, because that food is going to turn into milk for your baby, and you need enough milk for your baby throughout the day, right? And so I was constantly eating eba, okay? And so constantly eating eba, gained my weight back. I looked in the mirror one day and was like, I don't know who that is. I'm not even playing with you. I did not know who that, like, I almost jumped. I'm like, oh my God, who is that lady? She big as hell, okay? And so I was like, okay, I'm not losing the weight. It's not going nowhere. I went on Ozempic for like 3 months. What I really like about Ozempic, though, that a lot of people don't talk about, is that if you have PCOS, Ozempic is actually great for you. Like when I took Ozempic, my periods was coming regularly. I slimmed down back to my normal size. I never really went back to pre-baby slim low. Like, she cute, but she ain't pre-baby slim low, and that's okay. But I never really went back to pre-baby slim low, but I made significant improvement. Because remember, when you have PCOS, you're also insulin resistant, so that can cause a lot of stubborn fat to, they'll say work out. First of all, some workouts stress you out and make it worse. Okay, let's be clear. So Ozempic definitely helps. Now, this is not an ad. And there are some negative side effects, so I never want to promote anything health-wise. You need to speak to your medical professionals about that. But it works for me. And I think as a PCOS girly, it should have been free, but we're gonna talk about that in another video. But basically, losing weight, exercise.
And I sped the video up, but I just want to say this too. PCOS has the major similarity to diabetes, right? Where there's insulin resistance, right? Where the way sugar is processed and broken down ultimately affects the metabolism. So seriously, if you have PCOS, look into Ozempic and other alternatives to it. It really will help that like stubborn hormone thing that you can't change. This is again not an ad. I'm not gonna say whether or not I'm using any of those types of things, but it's true. Like I really do think if you have PCOS, ask for something like it. Look for something like it because it treats that hormonal imbalance issue that we PCOS girlies get um, in general, right? Just from cycles and things like that. Um, it certainly treats that and helps it a little bit. So, anyways, let's continue. I just wanted to share that because I think as somebody um, who struggles with that issue with PCOS, and specifically how to improve when I balanced my diet and lost weight. Definitely look into all the options that are out there, including Ozempic. Don't let anybody shame you out of Ozempic, baby. All of those people, the ones you think that are hitting the gym, naturally losing weight, they're using Ozempic too, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, let's continue. Two ads for Ozempic in one video. No, that wasn't really an ad, but I'm just saying people don't pay attention to that aspect of PCOS. That makes it really hard to lose weight in the first place is that imbalance, that hormone issue.
And eating better helped me so much because again, like I said, I could not recognize myself. I couldn't recognize myself mentally. I couldn't recognize myself physically. I couldn't recognize myself financially because I was not working. I wasn't on here making content. You feel me? I wasn't taking clients and doing makeup. And so I wasn't working. And so financially, I'm like, who this girl? Who this broke? Putting more energy into fitness, health, it definitely helped me swim a little better. You know, now I'm in the water. Now I'm like, now I'm just chilling. I'm not drowning. I'm not trying to get my head above water. I'm in the water, but I'm alive. I like this. It's a nice day. Connecting with genuine friends. This part is a little emotional for me because I do feel like I have great friends. And I feel like when I was going through what I was going through, I basically cut all my friends out of my life. Like, they would call me, FaceTime me, tell me I want to come see you. I want to come see the baby. But I basically cut all my friends out of my life because I had no words. I had nothing to say. Like, you ever had the air knocked?
Oof. That's one thing I can relate to. When I was going through dust, whew, boy, I tell you, I didn't want to talk to nobody. I didn't want to take no pictures. I really was not interested in sharing to people what's going on in my life. I just wasn't, A lot of what's really sad is in 2024, on my birthday, someone really, really, really close to me that actually recently had gone through spouts of talking and not talking. Not necessarily not talking because we weren't friends, but like there would be gaps in time where we wouldn't be able to catch up and there would be stuff going on. But, the year that this toxic situation was wreaking havoc in my life, I actually lost a friend that I didn't realize I had lost until later. I had lost that friend during that birthday. And so the depth of the isolation that goes on when you get into these situations and, maybe the shame starts to kick in and you're like, what did I do? What am I in? It puts you in a bubble all by yourself. Like you really don't want people, you don't want nobody knowing about your life. And I think the unique thing with my situation is that there was this whole world of people that I didn't know and that didn't know me that suddenly had access to this very private part of my life that was supposed to be private. You know what I'm saying? I think that's where with creators who share their relationship and publics, their private information publicly, there becomes this need to explain, because I could have very well just let the situation be, stopped doing content, didn't post anything, just fell into it. I could have done that too, but I do think there is this like need to explain that comes along with having an online sort of like media page, whatever you want to call it. And I think for her, it was more of like, how do I tell my friends and family, people that I respect and that I hold near and dear to me, that I made this choice, right? This is what these online conversations try to turn into. You chose the wrong man. You should have chose better. These women are always choosing Pookie and Ray Ray, right? It becomes something you did and not something that happened to you. And that's what makes these conversations really dangerous, because now you have people indicting themselves. Now they're staying in relationships longer because they actually believe that if they stay in this situation, then nobody can tell them that, oh, we knew you were going to get divorced and, be a baby mama. And we knew he was going to be a Dusty. And so people feel this pressure to even more stay in these situations. So. Let me continue the video.
Out of you, I felt like I had the air knocked out of me, and when people and I was so used to being this positive woman, this happy woman, someone who always sees the light at the end of the tunnel, or someone who could always find the good in any bad situation, someone who had a life, someone who always wanted to be a mother and finally was given that opportunity, but I had nothing to say. I couldn't say nothing.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I wouldn't answer my phone. I wouldn't pick up. Also, like I told you, I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I looked, and I didn't want everyone my friends to think and FaceTime to me, and I look crazy. And I would not pick up the phone. I would not pick up the phone to talk to anybody. These FaceTime, these texts, it got to the point where they're like, I just want to know if you're okay. And I would text back, I'm okay, thank you. But I couldn't give y'all nothing. And it really hurt because I know they love me. I know they just want to make sure I'm okay. But I was at such a point in life, and I had to tell them, don't take it personal. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just really, really, really hurt. These are 20+ year friendships we're talking about. So I was able to connect with those women, give some of them just a little dose of what's going on, hey girl, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. But I remember recently, my best friend took me out to eat for my birthday, and first things first, she's like, oh, your birthday's coming up. Can I take you to eat? And I'm like, girl, hurry up, to eat. Just talking to her. We went out to eat. It was amazing. And so just talking, I told her, I had to stop telling myself I don't have friends. Because I stopped communicating with them, essentially, they kind of stopped communicating with me. Rightfully so. Essentially, if you're reaching out, somebody's not telling you anything or reaching back or returning your millions of calls, eventually you'll say, okay, let me fall back and leave alone. So there was a point where I was like, I don't have any friends. It's just me. I'm just alone. It's just me. I'm lonely, right? And so I told my friend, I have to stop telling myself that.
Yeah, and some of that is self-isolation, right? You let the shame eat you up, right? Oh, I should have chose better. I'm in this toxic, dusty situation, or I'm with this man who doesn't respect me. He lashes out, whatever the circumstances were, and you stay in it almost longer just because you don't even want to have to deal with the other side, which is people knowing that you've been suffering in this bad situation. That's the sad part. But let's continue. Oh, hold on. Let me read this here. Sadly, we should never cut off family and friends or any relationship on any tier. But people are told they should. It's bad advice. Yeah, people are told that, they should focus on, there's some people who actually believe that when they get into a relationship, they should isolate. Hold on, guys. That they should isolate and focus simply on that relationship, right? No friends around, family. You guys need time just for you and your family. And I do think that that's true to an extent. And I do think that's true, especially when you're a new family and you're trying to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. But it takes a village, right? It doesn't take two people who have children. It takes a whole group of people. So if somebody's wanting to be in a relationship with you and cutting you off from all the people that you know and love, that's a bad sign, right? Them wanting you to disconnect from talking to people who care about you or are concerned about you. You should never. Oh, what am I doing?
I don't have friends because I damn sure do. I just gotta get back to a point where I'm able to communicate with them, be honest with them, and be honest with them and letting them know, like, hey girl, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just a bit overwhelmed right now, or I'm just a bit busy right now. It's a lot going on. Or let them know, like, hey, you can't call me between this time and that time. And you best believe, let me go back out. Y'all know I'm kind of dating. That's a separate video. Yeah, but even with the guy that I'm dating, it's like, just so you know, we can't. No, we're not doing phone. This is baby Beckham. Like, this is my baby Beckham. We're gonna do a separate video on how I really got to being comfortable with dating, because that took a long time too. But yeah, it's a new me now. So I'm just setting up new boundaries. I'm trying my best to let people know, because I get overwhelmed. I do, and so I just have to let people know. And I tell myself, you have to hold yourself accountable for these relationships that you want to continue to have. So just let your friends know, hey, from these times I can't talk because I'm doing something with the baby. This is my availability. Okay, you want to give me the phone? This is my availability. Same thing with dating. You want to give me the phone? This is my availability for the phone. You want to go on dates? This is my availability for dates. And everybody's happy. Okay? And so, yeah, so I have to have those conversations with friends. And I'm telling you, it just made me feel so loved. And I just felt so much better. One of my sisters, my sisters are always pouring into me, especially during the thick of it, through the divorce process, like taking me out, giving me money. Like, I told somebody, I'm like, listen, I'm spoiled. I tell men, I'm like, listen, I'm going to let you know right now, I'm spoiled. And it's not even the ways that you probably think. And you're like, what you mean? For first and foremost, my family spoils me. My family spoils me. Secondly, I spoil myself. I would say, baby, you deserve it. You deserve this, like, get it. It looks so nice on you. Like, when's the last time you had that? Like, go ahead, get it. All right, I'm gonna get it.
And this factor, I would say, is so important in the survival rate or of a person who goes into or who gets into a toxic situation like this. I do think a lot of the times the women who are the most susceptible are the ones who don't have a village. Even if it's not people that will spoil them, but they just don't have people who have the capability or the energy or the availability to even be, a resource like that, to lift someone up out of a situation like that. Obviously, she did eventually open her eyes. You don't just turn your back on 20-year relationships and friendships. That was strong enough for her. Some people do. Some people turn away from people they've known their whole lives for a relationship and it ends badly. But that was a protective factor, the strength of her relationships, how supported she felt by her family. And there, she started doing what a lot of people do. Okay, they self-isolate and they tell themselves that those relationships and people didn't mean anything. They actually let the programming of that partner that is trying to separate them has been trying to say. It becomes their norm. So her leaning into family and having that was such a very, very important part of this. All right, so I want to move on to another video now, really quickly, because we got through a pretty good part of Elohu's story, and this is the end of me covering her story, because she does talk about a lot more on the subject of divorce and just leaving that relationship. She goes into a lot more that I'm interested in getting into, especially because part of her relationship was documented online, or at least talked about online. And I do think to some degree people are using it like to try and be like, oh, look, this, you thought you got this amazing man, and come to find out, you ended up in a situation like all women do, and it becomes like a talking point. Oh, well, that's a black woman in the failed relationship, right? All right, so let's go into this next video here. Like I mentioned, I was going to go into Dr. Tracy Marks, and she just recently dropped a video on the brain aspect of love bombing, and not so much the term that everyone likes to throw around that they don't know how to explain too well. All right, so buckle in for this one. We're going to kind of try and break down everything that's being said in layman's term as we watch the video.
Have you ever met someone who wanting to get back to what they
And she's going to address it there. But one thing that's really important to remember about what she's describing is the two extremes. Okay? So you have the one instance where, you're actually in a situation where, sorry guys, sorry, I have to answer something really quick. Let me play some music. It has no sound again. Hold on, let me play some music real quick. I gotta answer the phone.
Battles got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feed, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolve, ain't no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolve, ain't no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle.
All right, my bad, guys, my bad. You have to keep your mic open for us to hear. Oh, okay, yeah, my bad. I'm gonna play the video. I'm just gonna like scroll it back to the beginning. It's only been 30 seconds, just because of the disruption. So at least y'all can hear the video straight through. Okay. All right, let's continue.
Have you ever met someone who seemed to understand you almost immediately? The connection felt strong right away. They were attentive, expressive, warm, and fully engaged. It felt like closeness was building fast. And then, just as quickly, something changed. They pulled back. The energy shifted. The consistency disappeared. And instead of feeling yourself detached, you found yourself thinking about them more, replaying conversations, trying to figure out what happened, wanting to get back to what things felt like in the beginning. If that experience has ever left you confused, there's a reason for that.
And she's gonna get into all that, but the reason why it's important to make note of the thing that I was just talking about was the two extremes, right? You go from that person is literally making you feel 100% seen. They're giving you this intense feeling, right? That you're mistaking with intimacy. Oh, sorry. Why is my internet flashing? Because Restream is having a panic attack right now. I don't know what it's doing. Brownie says, "Hey, Flora, congratulations! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be single again. Very much. But there's this really big extreme that's going on, and anytime that extremes happen, there becomes unbalance where people are confused, and so there's this moment where that person's really attentive, they're making you feel seen, they're showing up as everything that you expect in a relationship, and then they're completely removing it, right? That removal is it's like warfare to your brain. Right? Brains, like they say all the time, don't say bad things to yourself because your brain doesn't know the difference, right? Affirmations have been known to be a very positive thing because literally the things that you tell yourself is what you begin to feel and like manifest. That's the word that people use a lot of the time. That's kind of where we're at. And so when it comes to love bombing, what's happening is that person is making you feel seen and showing you and providing an intensity that feels like closeness, and then they're removing it as a way of making you really miss and crave them. And all of this is happening in a very short period of time. So for a brain that requires repetition and like for things to be proven and for consistency, for your brain that needs all those things for it to be able to compute normally, it doesn't know how to. It's just going to break down what's really going on in your brain when somebody is giving and taking love from you, as a way to manipulate you. Right? Let's get into it.
What makes love bombing so destabilizing is not just the connection feels tense, it's that the intensity gets established quickly and then removed before your brain has had time to make sense of what's actually happening. I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos to help you understand how your brain works so you can build better mental resilience and healthier relationships. In this video, I want you to look at love bombing through the lens of neuroscience, not as a buzzword and not as a personality label, but part of a pattern of accelerated attachment and withdrawal that some brains are especially vulnerable to. Most people define love bombing as excessive affection at the beginning of a relationship, and that's part of it, but that definition misses the mechanism. The real issue is not simply that someone is intense. The issue is that your brain starts forming an attachment before there's been enough time to evaluate whether that closeness is actually grounded in anything stable. That's what makes this so powerful. Your brain is not bonding to a fantasy on purpose. It's responding to cues that normally signal connection, like attention, responsiveness, emotional availability, frequent contact, and strong affirming language. Those things matter to the brain. They're not neutral. They're the kinds of signals that your attachment system is designed to notice. So when someone gives you a high dose of those signals early on,
So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the term mirroring or psychological mirroring, right? So I think kind of what she's describing is almost like a person is mirroring, like they're in a strong, deep emotional bond with you, right? They're ticking all the boxes externally, but because of the amount of time that has passed, meaning you haven't seen enough of them to know if they're actually consistently good and other things, they're sending signals to your brain as if they are this good, great person, right? Something you can't control. They're sending signals to your brain as if they are, but they're really just mimicking. They're not actually a person who is deeply connected to you and attached to you and attuned to you. They're using that attunement, or they're faking that attunement in order to get something out of you, whether it be empathy, emotion, money, manipulation. Maybe they're able to get you to feel bad for them, right? Or to see them as something more than, somebody that's trying to extract intercourse from them, right? There could be any reason why that they're employing these tactics, but it's doing the same thing as mirroring is, which is just showing you what you think is a close connection. But because it's happening so quickly, your brain thinks that it's a close connection, right? It has all the signs. Oh, well, he's there. He's consistent. He's affectionate. He shows like he sees me. But in 12 days, right? And really those feelings, they should be like a sign that something's wrong, right? Because you shouldn't in 12 days already feel deeply connected to somebody. You haven't seen enough of them, right? You haven't seen enough of them to know if they're going to be a good partner, if they're consistent, or if they're worth investing your life or your womb in, right? 12 days is not enough time. So if you feel that, right, maybe one of the things that we got to add to our list is, if you feel so deeply connected so early, that's a sign that you're being manipulated in the relationship. right? Maybe we should start taking notes, antidotes to some of these love bombings. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Let's continue, though.
Brain starts encoding that person as important. Oxytocin helps create a sense of bonding and trust. Dopamine helps mark the experience as salient and worth paying attention to. And none of this is irrational. It's your nervous system doing what it was built to do. The problem is that attachment is supposed to form gradually. In a healthier progression, your brain gets repeated exposure over time. It has a chance to observe behavior in different situations. It gets to see whether the person is consistent, emotionally stable, trustworthy, and able to sustain closeness with the kind of closeness that they're creating. That slow accumulation of data is what helps your brain build intimacy in a more accurate way. But love bombing compresses that process. It creates the feeling of established closeness before the evidence is there. So instead of your brain saying, I'm still learning who this person is, it starts to move toward, this person matters. This person feels important. The connection is real. And once that happens, the bond your brain is experiencing is real, even if the relationship is not yet grounded. This is why people are often embarrassed afterward. They tell themselves, I should have known better, or I got attached too fast. But that framing misses what actually happened. The issue is not poor judgment. The issue is that the attachment system got activated before the thinking brain had enough information to evaluate what was happening. And then comes the part that makes the whole thing feel really disproportionate, the withdrawal. This is where the nerve.
Now, before I continue, I just want to touch on what she just talked about there, right? She talked about how the hormone system that we have can contribute to this, right? Because if your body is sending out oxytocin and dopamine for somebody that your brain hasn't gotten a chance to get all the evidence for, are you going to tell yourself, okay, dopamine, go back inside your body, or go back into that little gland in your brain that you secrete out of? Oxytocin, don't secrete every time this person's around, right? Don't get activated every time you're around this person anymore, right? Those fuzzy feelings that women talk about, the butterflies, that's not us daydreaming about a bandit with, a hairline that recedes, as far as the ocean. That's not us romanticizing a regular man. It's our brain literally working against us, right? Our brain is a very complex organ, obviously, right? Because based on what's happening in our environment, it's going to respond. And so our brain is responding to this person shoving a bunch of emotions and intimacy packaged to look like emotion and intimacy as a way of gaining this trust and building a facade of deepness and care. Our brain is doing that. Our brain is literally falling for a person. That's probably why they call it falling, right? Because you're becoming susceptible to a person being able to have this grip on you. And it's our hormones that are having control over it. So I think when we think about it this way, it's easier for us not to jump into the conversation where we do the SBE, as they say, right? The shaming and the blaming. Oh, you should have chose better. You should have knew. He was a Dusty. He's been a Dusty. He had a Dusty platform. He already had 7 baby mamas. He already had 12 failed relationships. All these things, these factors that people think are predictors. There's some people who have 5 baby mamas and then that 6th relationship is the healthiest one. Right? It's not as simple as being able to look at somebody and tell that they are not a good mate. It's not that simple. Let's continue though, because what she's going to talk about is the withdrawal, right? Is that pull that brings people back into these situations where somebody is dangling love in their face, right? They're giving them this influx of affection, of love, of being seen, and then they're taking it away, right? And the withdrawal is the part that makes these relationships difficult to leave. So let's continue.
Neuroscience becomes especially important. When that intense connection suddenly drops off, your brain doesn't process it as a minor letdown. It processes it as a form of social pain. And social pain is not just a poetic phrase on music. There's an actual overlap in the brain between the systems involved in physical pain and the systems involved in rejection, exclusion, and relational loss. One key area involved here is the anterior cingulate cortex. This region is active in the distress response to social disconnection, and it also plays a role in processing physical pain. So when people say that breakup hurt or that rejection felt crushing, there's a real neurological basis for that. The brain does not treat the sudden loss of meaningful connection as trivial. It treats it as something threatening and painful. And that matters because once the brain is in pain, it starts trying to resolve the pain. It starts searching for explanations. It starts pulling your attention back to the person. It wants closure, repair, and relief. So the mental preoccupation that follows love bombing is not just emotional immaturity or your obsession. Often, it's your brain trying to make sense of an attachment that was formed quickly and then interrupted. This is also why people can feel confused by the strength of their own reaction. They think, why is this affecting me so much? I barely knew them. But your brain is not measuring the relationship by calendar time. It's responding to the intensity and frequency of the bonding signals it received. If the attachment signal was strong, then the removal of that signal can feel strong too. Now, some people are more vulnerable to this pattern than others, not because they're weaker, but because their brains may already be organized in a.
And, before we get into who's a little bit more susceptible, I think that's an important thing that we have to remember when we go through situations like this and we're left on the other side asking ourselves, what culpability did I have in whatever situation that I was in, right? And it's important to have grace with yourself, have grace with other women, to be a sister. No, we're not going to form sisterhoods online and become best buddies with girls that are in chat boxes. That's not going to happen. But we should have enough grace for other women to understand how these rapid attachments happen. Now, don't get me wrong. In this video, she's not saying that men love bomb women. She's not saying that. She's just talking about love bombing in general. So let's make sure we keep it on that. But as a woman who's talking to women, from my experience, that's the only way I can speak as a woman, is that it's really easy for our brains and our bodies to be telling us something different than what's actually happening, right? The reason why these bonds feel so intense, like she was mentioning, is because they're established really, really quickly. And since they're doing, right, that's where in love bombing, there is culpability in the other person, right? Because that person knows that by unleashing this rapid, intense, super concentrated amount of affection and, chasing of a person, they know what that does to a person, right? I do think that there's accountability on the side of that other person because they know. They know that coming into this situation, they're going to get what they want out of you if they dangle love in your face. If they tell you everything that they think you want to hear, if they check all the boxes off, even if they're not even sure about the boxes or which boxes they want to check with you. Right? The culpability lies in the person who employs these tactics. And yeah, they might not be someone who's going to be forthcoming and say, yes, I love bomb that girl, or I love bomb that man. But that's where the culpability lies. This is simply a thing that people do. It's a thing that people do. They get into these relationships and they understand that the best way to get people to do what you want and be who you want them to be is to make them believe that you see them, that you want to be with them, that you want to understand them and be everything that they need. Unfortunately, some people will go that far just to get the tip weto. They will. They will. Everyone has different priorities. And I think love bombing is employed by people who shamelessly they will shamelessly do what they need to do to get what they want. No shame. I'm not going to say, ooh, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality, bandit, naked, dusty. I'm not going to say any of those things. But those certainly would be in the category of people who would employ a tactic like this. They don't even have to be a mastermind. You know that you have to, if you want somebody to do what you want, right? Something we learned very early. You do exactly what it is they're expecting of you or they want from you. So let's say a man wants some vagina, but he knows that that woman would like to get married. You guys remember that episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? When Will Smith married that girl, he had a fake marriage. Jazz actually was the officiant, but he fake married her and was going to take her virginity. But he felt bad, I guess. Something, I forget what happened in the end. I think he either felt bad or it got interrupted. But he was going to take her virginity after staging a fake marriage because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to have intercourse with her, and he believed, well, I'm just going to do what I need to do. He didn't really want to be with her. He didn't really want to, deflower her and then be with her for the rest of her life. He wanted to deflower her. And he knew that he needed to tell her, I'll marry you and I'll be with you to do that. Right? So there's people on all walks of life who will do whatever it is that they want to do. They will pretend in any way that they need to in order to get what they want. It's just what it is, unfortunately. Unfortunately, that's just the case. Let's continue with her video though.
Way that makes rapid attachment especially potent. One reason for this is inconsistent early connection. If your nervous system learned early on that closeness is unpredictable, that care can be intense and then disappear, that pattern may already feel familiar to you. Not comforting exactly, but just recognizable. Your brain may be more likely to lock on to intensity because it has learned to treat inconsistency as just part of the connection. Another vulnerability is having a low internal baseline for steadiness or connection. If you already tend to feel emotionally undernourished, unseen, or uncertain in yourself, then a sudden surge of attention can feel especially powerful. It doesn't just feel good, it can feel regulating. It can make you feel relief. And then, when something feels like relief, losing it hits even harder. There's another layer to this that connects to my earlier video on losing yourself. If closeness starts forming quickly, your sense of self can begin reorganizing around that bond before the relationship has earned that level of influence. In other words, the we starts to form before the I is stable enough to stay intact. So when the other person starts to withdraw, it doesn't just feel like disappointment, it can feel disorienting, like you lost your footing, like part of your emotion.
Yeah, so honestly, I think that she's speaking about codependency, right? Where people their whole identity starts to be my man, 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 my man. Now, in reality, when Megan created that song, in no part of that song did she say Clay's name, right? But people automatically associate that song with her relationship. And I think the same way people do it to themselves, right? Oh, my husband, oh, my husband, Oh, my man. Yeah, me and my man are just gonna go. All about the man, 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 man. Mind you, they're not the only person in the room married. They're not the only person in the room with a child. They're not the only person in the room with a family. Other people have marriages. They just don't make it all. They don't make their whole personality about the man. Oh, girl, let's go to the gym. Oh, girl, I can't. Me and my man, we do that together. Oh, girl, let's go. Let's go for a hike this Saturday. Girl, Saturday's me and my man. You know the people. And unfortunately, that's why it's not good to be that my man, my man, my man type of girl. Because now something goes wrong, the relationship is not healthy, maybe the person becomes abusive, and you've told the whole world about your man, your man, your man, your man, your man, your man. And so now that shame builds around it as well. I do think some people stay with certain guys or in certain situations because everybody knows that that's their boyfriend, or they're married and they have 4 kids and everyone thinks their life's perfect, and that's enough to motivate someone to stay in that crappy relationship. And so what she's talking about here is where like that person is connected to the relationship in an unhealthy way. Right now they can't leave that spouse because that spouse is part of their identity. If they leave that spouse, then their picture perfect, Instagram friendly life no longer exists. Or, that trump card that they have against all the people they went to high school with no longer exists. They now can't say, well, me and my man and my family. They can't say that anymore, right? Because that image is gone. That card that they played all the time, that insecurity that they were holding on to, it's no longer a thing anymore. And so it's really important to keep yourself, like, have your own. One thing about me, I have my own hobbies, even outside of streaming and like work. I have my own hobbies and things that I like to do. I have a lot of things that I like to do, and I hope that I have enough time and years left in my life to do all those things that I'm interested in doing. Because outside of wanting to have romance and a family and a legacy and yada yada yada, you also gotta have your own independent self. There's nothing wrong with maintaining an independent schedule from your spouse and your children. I don't have kids, so I understand some of you guys feel like your life has to be 100% merged with your kids all the time. But I think that people need to have individuality. Even if you become a mom young, I do believe you still need to have your individual life. Okay, you take care of your kids, you have a husband, but there got to be at least one day out of the week that you spend doing something for yourself. At least one day, even if it's not all the way to the nighttime. Maybe you got to come home at 5 o'clock and do what you need to do, whatever. But I do believe that people need to maintain their individuality. That's the only way relationships are going to hold up. If we keep dragging in these archaic views that we have about relationships into relationships today, they're going to continue to be, these talking points and these gender war topics. It's going to continue to be that way. And I think that what's happening is that we're not building modern relationships that last. Lana said, I wish I had more personal time. Yeah, and like maybe you have even more personal time than a woman who doesn't even have the ability to prioritize or is not given the chance to prioritize herself. Like maybe you want more because you're already getting some and it's helping alleviate some of that stress. There's some people out there who never get a day off and they don't believe they need one because they're not working. I've worked with children before. That is a job. Everyone who has to deal with a child should have to be paid for it. I'm just saying. No offense to the tiny people. This is the reason why there is a lot of single women. What's the reason why there's a lot of single women? Do you want to tell me? Do you want to tell me? I'm curious. I'm really curious because I do think sometimes, like people hear conversations about marriage and relationship, they just assume that you're on some gender banging stuff, and that's not what's happening. So, I mean, if you want to tell me, you can hit that link, but it has to be from a computer. I have 2 streams going, so if you want to go to the other one and hit the link, if you're in the other one. But I mean, it's just not true. I think the fact that people still hold the belief that a woman needs to let go of her own individual life when she gets married and has kids that's why a lot of people are not doing it. That's why I work with. I'm a paralegal. There's a lot of people who get divorced before anything happens. Before, not like back in the day, getting divorced, there's kids attached to it. There's a lot of people who get divorced nowadays, and there is no children attached to it. None. They couldn't even figure it out for that time that they were together. What accountability? I mean, what accountability are we talking about? Where are we lacking accountability? I'm just so confused. Let's continue with the video. I just think like sometimes people are just on autopilot now when they're on YouTube, and every conversation has to turn into, this is why you're single, or you're an incel, you're a dusty. Just why can't we just take the substance of the conversation?
Structure just got pulled out from under you. This helps explain why the pattern often follows the same sequence. First, there's rapid bombing. Lots of contact, lots of affirmation, lots of intense emotional closeness early on. Then there's withdrawal. The person becomes inconsistent, less available, less engaged, or just emotionally harder to reach. And then comes the third phase, which is craving and confusion. And you start trying to figure out what changed. You want to restore the early version of the connection. You feel pulled toward repairing something you don't fully understand. There's also a psychological reason this rush can feel like fate or certainty instead of just a strong start. When your body is in a highly activated state and then flooded with connection signals, your brain has to decide what that feeling means. A classic psychological construct is the 2-factor theory of emotion, which says that arousal comes first and interpretation comes second. Your nervous system reacts, and then your mind builds a story around that reaction. So in the context of love bombing, that story can sound like, this must be special, this must be deep. But often what you're registering is just a flooded nervous system, not a relationship that has actually been tested over time. What's important here is that this is not the same as intimacy. Intimacy is built slowly. It comes from repeated exposure to someone's character, consistency, and emotional reliability. Intensity can feel like intimacy, but they're not the same thing. Intensity is fast. Intimacy is earned. Intensity can overwhelm the system. Intimacy stabilizes it. That distinction matters because many people use the feeling of intensity as proof that something is meaningful. But intensity is not always a sign of depth. Sometimes it's just a sign that your attachment system has been activated quickly. So the first...
That's really important. When she mentioned that, it really took me aback. Because really, a lot of people judge relationships on that strong pull, that strong feeling, right? But in reality, what she's saying is that a healthy, stable relationship is not gonna feel like that, right? There's a lot of stability behind it. You're not worried, and you know exactly who that person is. What you expect out of them outside of like people growing and changing, they're pretty consistent. They tell you, I'm gonna show up 3 days a week, we're gonna hang out and do things. That's what they do. They tell you, I'm gonna take care of you. We're gonna build a legacy together. You could stay home or you can work. It doesn't matter. I'm taking care of you. That's what they do. It doesn't change, right? The one thing that love bombing and the chemical release that's happening does is it takes away that time that builds the stability. Like people, too many people, I would say women started being indoctrinated when they were girls, right? And we were taught to believe that that strong pull, that intense feeling, that was a sign that that was a good relationship. That's what we were taught in the movies, on the shows, in the I believe romantic comedies or romance films, although they are entertainment, they're a form of manipulative programming as well, right? Oh, the strong feeling. I love him so deeply. I love her so much. That intensity that they talk about rather than describing consistent emotions in a relationship that you go through. Let's continue.
The first thing you want to do here is to slow down the meaning making. If connection feels unusually strong early on, ask yourself a simple question. How much do I actually know this person compared to how strongly I feel about them? That question doesn't invalidate the feeling. It just helps bring your thinking brain back into the picture. For example, you might notice, I feel like I've known this person forever, but I've only seen them a handful of times, and mostly through text. The second thing you can do is separate emotional intensity from behavioral evidence. What has this person consistently shown you? Not what they did or said in a heightened moment, or not how felt you seen on day 3. What have they shown you through repeated actions over time? Are they stable? Are they consistent? Does their level of engagement hold up when the novelty wears off? That is the data that your brain needs in order to form an accurate attachment. And the third thing you can do is to understand the withdrawal response while it's happening. If you feel that urgency to reconnect or to decode, to repair things, it can help to name what's happening in a very simple way. You can tell yourself, my brain is registering this as a loss. That might sound small, but that matters. Because once you understand that the intensity is being amplified by the pain circuitry of your brain, you become less likely to interpret that urgency as proof that the relationship itself was healthy or profound. Let me say it again in a different way. Your brain's pain circuitry is exaggerating how intense this relationship feels. Because of that, you don't have an accurate picture right now of how genuine the bond really was. Shifting your thinking about this can be stabilizing.
So, like, honestly, what it sounds like is that we need to start treating the intense feeling that we get in these situations that turn out to be love bombing as a red flag. If you're feeling an intensely strong emotion to somebody that you just started dating, that you haven't even consistently seen behavior from yet, maybe that's a sign to step back and stop spending so much time with that person, right? Maybe you need to reestablish what it is that you're looking for, right? Maybe have a conversation about boundaries and limiting how much time you spend with that person. And I think if it's early on and you're trying to get to know each other, a healthy person isn't going to take that the wrong way and be like, oh, well, I thought we had something, like some of these dusties do when they're love bombing you. A regular person is going to be like, you know what? We have been spending too much time together. I just met you a week ago and we hung out 5 days in a row. Right? If we really started treating that intensity like the danger that it is, right? Because it is a danger for you to feel like somebody is close and connected to you and you really haven't seen evidence of that yet. That's a dangerous thing. Right? We have to start treating that what it truly is a red flag. It's a sign that something is wrong. Right? So if that home girl that you have tells you that she's suddenly in love, she wants to get married and have kids within the next 3 months, and she just met this man 6 months ago, right? Don't be a hater and be like, oh no, girl, you're being love bombed. But help that person see that that's not necessarily a healthy thing, right? And we also have to change our understanding as people, as women as well, right? The forms and the spaces that we spend talking to women and to our friends and the women in our lives. We have to talk about things like this and say, listen, your homegirl tells you that she's been dating a dude for 3 months and he proposed, red flag. She's been dating him for 3 months, and she sleeps over his house every day now. Red flag. Not enough time. Not enough consistency. All of those things kind of compound. Yeah, we might not be able to completely avoid these type of situations, right? Sometimes the dopamine and the oxytocin is going to win. But if we start to program ourselves and the people that we know and tell them, especially girls, because girls get the bad programming. Men are not taught to fall head over heels for women. No, they're taught to be the knight in shining armor, to have the bravado and show up like they're the best man and be performative. They're taught all of that, right? While girls are taught to be the damsel in distress and let a man take them and carry them away. Who sounds like they're in more danger in that scenario? Let's be real here. All right, let's finish up that video, and then I'll see you all in the next one. All right, got a few minutes left here, or more like a minute and a half.
It lets you stop using the strength of the reaction as evidence that the person was uniquely important. The reaction may be strong because your brain is in distress, not because the connection was solid. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Love bombing works because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Respond to a connection, attach to a source of warmth, seek relief from pain. None of that is wrong. None of that makes you gullible or needy. Understanding the mechanism doesn't mean you stop feeling the pull. It means that you know what the pull is made of. And once you know that, you can experience the intensity and still ask the pacing question. You can feel the pain of withdrawal and recognize it as a neurological process rather than proof that you need to go back. In the next video, we're going to look at a different kind of protection pattern. What happens when love and anger get tangled, and why you might find yourself.
You know what? We might come back and do some more videos from Dr. Tracy Marks and kind of get behind the psychology of it. Now, there is more that I have on this subject, but I'll probably come back and maybe do a different topic. So I thank you all kind of for coming here today and watching the stream with me. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. I've been gone for like a month, and StreamYard, they've all changed significantly just in that month. So shout out to all the content creators out there. It is very difficult to keep up with technology. Not fun at all. But I'm gonna come back to this conversation because this is a very, very important one. You know, I think the gender war online and all that conversation, they really have made it hard for people to want to have real conversations about real relationships and where they go wrong and where they go right and how we can make them go right versus wrong, etc. Like, people are scared to touch on that because, you know, it's been labeled a thing that we do too much. But I do think that we can bring the balance back to these conversations by just kind of getting into some of these topics a little bit more deeply, on a more human level, outside of the gender war arena. All right, so on that note, I'm going to send you guys off with a little tune, and I will see you all on the next show. Thank you so much for watching.
Midnight whispers in the alleyway. Steel toe kicks on the pavement play. Silent moves like a ghost in flight. Hood up tight beneath the street light. Echoes scream, but the sirens lie. Justice sleeps while the wicked rise. Fists don't talk, they recite the law. Every hit leaves the guilty raw. Shadow justice in the neon glow. Dancing dark where the lost souls go. One wrong step and you're in my sight. I'm the judge in the dead of night. I'm the judge in the dead of night. Moonlight light spills like a silver stain. Truth don't bend for the dollar's chain. Bloodstained rhythm, my heart still pure to the last wrong phase from the door. Concrete scars tell the tales untold. Every crack holds a story cold. Breath like smoke when the chase begins. No remorse when the sinner grins. Handcuffed dreams in a crooked town. Kings of ash wear a plastic crown, but the fire burn where the shadows creep. I don't rest till the streets can sleep. Shadow justice in the neon glow, dancing dark where the lost souls go. One wrong step and you're in my side. I'm the judge in the dead of night.